Varen hung in the void of the Dominion's edge like a bloodshot eye, a moon wholly consumed by the industry of violence. From orbit, the surface was a tangled knot of neon veins and ferrocrete scars, pulsing with the strobe lights of 1,000 betting parlors and viewing decks. Warships parked in the upper atmosphere like vultures waiting for a carcass to cool, their hulls stamped with the crests of different star sectors, all united by a singular hunger for spectacle. Drones buzzed in thick clouds around the docking spires, streaming the screams of the dying to trillions of viewers across the galaxy. Here, agony was not a tragedy. It was the highest form of currency. Commander Saren Kale stood on the observation deck of Docking Bay 4, her posture as rigid as the plating of her ceremonial armor. She was a striking figure, tall and lethal, with skin the color of polished moonlight and eyes that burned with a cold, violet intelligence. To the soldiers under her command, she was a terrifying instrument of the Dominion's will, a woman who enforced order with a blade's precision. To herself, she was a liar living in the belly of a beast. She watched the prisoner transport dock, the heavy thud of locking clamps vibrating through the metal floor beneath her boots. The ramp hissed open, venting stale air and the smell of unwashed bodies into the bay. Records indicate 300 units of labor-grade biologicals, she thought, her eyes scanning the holographic manifest floating above her wrist gauntlet. But the heat signatures tell me there are 310. 10 off the books. 10 specifically chosen to vanish. Down on the transport ramp, the new arrivals were being herded out by Dominion shock troopers. The prisoners were a mosaic of the galaxy's unwanted, deserters, debtors, political dissidents, and species driven to extinction everywhere else but here. The arena of suns did not merely kill them, it digested them. Saren turned her gaze toward the arena proper, visible through the reinforced transparent steel behind her. It was a marvel of cruelty. The floor was not static ground, but a shifting mosaic of gravity plates that could crush a heavy worlder into paste or send a sniper floating helplessly into the path of a buzzsaw. Holographic biomes flickered over the sand, simulating jungles, frozen tundras, or volcanic flats, while sound emitters pumped localized panic frequencies directly into the combatants' nervous systems. Above it all hung the sun cannon, a massive orbital mirror array capable of painting specific fighters in concentrated beams of searing heat light. It was a stage built to make death look like art. Movement on the ramp drew her attention back to the prisoners. A commotion. A human woman was stalling the line. She looked small compared to the four-armed alien guard shoving her, but there was a kinetic tension in her frame, like a coiled spring. She was bruised, her flight suit torn at the shoulder, her dark hair matted with sweat and grime. Yet, she was not cowering. "Cut the feed from that sector," Saren commanded silently, tapping her gauntlet to loop the security footage for the local monitors. She needed to see this without the arena master watching over her shoulder, down on the deck. Mira Hale spat a mouthful of blood onto the polished boot of the guard. "You have a lot of aggression for a guy with a face that looks like a dropped lasagna," Mira said. Her voice was rough, scraping against her throat, but the sarcasm was a shield she wore as tightly as her skin. The guard, a hulking crustacean hybrid, roared and yanked her chain. Mira stumbled but kept her feet, refusing to beg. She was terrified. Saren could see the tremor in the human's hands, the way her pupils were dilated to black saucers. But Mira Hale was evidently the type of creature who would rather die mocking the executioner than give him the satisfaction of a plea. "Move. Meet," the guard growled, his translator collar garbling the syntax. "I am moving. Mira snapped back. You are the one stepping on my heels. Do you want to dance or walk? Make up your mind. The guard lost his patience. He reached out with a massive chitinous claw, grabbing Mira by the back of her flight suit to drag her toward the processing chute. The fabric tore with a sharp ripping sound, exposing the back of her neck and shoulders to the harsh white glare of the docking bay lights. Saren stepped forward, intending to intervene before the guard broke the merchandise. But she stopped. The entire bay seemed to stop. Alien soldiers pulled a human girl into the arena until they saw the tattoo on her neck. Reaper. It was a single word, inked in stark, old black letters right at the base of her throat, stark against the pale skin. The guard's claw froze mid-air. He did not tighten his grip. He released her as if her skin had suddenly become white-hot iron. He took a step back, his multiple eyes blinking rapidly in a sequence of distress. Reaper, another soldier whispered. The word hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. That is a Reaper mark. Orders that vanish from the record, the first guard muttered, backing away until he bumped into the hull of the transport. Do not touch her. If the mark is active, we are already dead. Mira spun around, clutching her torn collar, looking confused. What are you freaks staring at? Saren's heart hammered against her ribs. She knew that mark. Every high-born child in the Dominion heard the whispers in the nursery, the ghost stories about the Emperor's shadow assassins, the ones who did not exist, the ones who were sent to prune the family trees of ambitious dukes and traitorous generals. But the program was a myth. It had been officially disbanded 2 centuries ago. Why was it inked on the neck of a human scavenger in a flight suit? Saren descended the stairs from the observation deck, her armored boots clanking loudly to break the spell of fear. The soldiers snapped to attention, but their eyes kept darting back to the girl. Stand down, Saren ordered, her voice projected by her helmet speakers, cool and authoritative. Commander Kale, the lead guard stammered. The prisoner. She bears the sigil. I have eyes. Sergeant, Saren said. She stopped 3 feet from Mira. The human woman looked up, her expression a mix of defiance and bewilderment. Who are you? Saren asked. Mira straightened her spine. Mira Hale, salvage operator. And I would love to know why your overgrown lobsters are suddenly afraid of me. Is it my breath? Saren did not smile. She stepped closer, her gauntleted hand reaching out to brush the torn fabric aside. Mira flinched, but Saren was fast, tilting the human's head forward to inspect the ink. It was not just a tattoo. Saren's helmet sensors picked up a faint, dormant energy signature beneath the dermal layer. It was real. Get her out of the general population line, Saren commanded, dropping her hand. The sergeant hesitated. But the manifest says she goes to the pit. The manifest is wrong, Saren said, her voice dropping an octave, dangerous and soft. Transfer her to medical holding. Wing 4, maximum security. If anyone asks, tell them she is carrying a pathogen I need to isolate. Do not speak of the mark. If I hear the word Reaper on the comms, I will have you all reassigned to waste reclamation duty on the sulfur colonies. The soldiers scrambled to obey, their fear of the tattoo outweighing their confusion. Mira looked at Saren, her dark eyes narrowing. You are not saving me, are you? Saren looked down at the human, her face hidden behind the sleek, faceless visor of her helmet. I am curious, Saren said. Do not mistake curiosity for mercy. She turned and walked away before Mira could answer. But inside her helmet, Saren's display was recording the image of the tattoo, running it against a database she was never supposed to access. 5 levels down, in the bowels of the arena where the air tasted of ozone and despair. Rook Mercer was trying to fix a gravity emitter that had been built by the lowest bidder. Come on, you piece of junk, Rook muttered, wiping grease from his forehead with the back of a scarred hand. He jammed a hydro spanner into the guts of the machine, sparks showering down over his coveralls. Rook was a human in his early 30s, though the heavy gravity of Varan and the endless shifts made him look older. He had tired, slate-gray eyes and a mouth that naturally rested in a cynical line. He had been a pilot once, flying distinct, honorable routes, until a debt he hadn't accrued landed him here, indentured to the Arena Maintenance Corps. Above him, separated by a transparent force field floor, the wealthy patrons of the Dominion walked and mingled. They looked down at the maintenance tunnels as if they were looking at a zoo exhibit. "Hey, grease monkey!" a voice boomed from above. An intoxicated alien noble in velvet robes was tapping on the force field with a cane. "Make it spin faster. I want to see them bleed." Rook did not look up. He kept twisting the spanner. "If I make it spin faster, the dampeners will fail and you will be liquefied against the ceiling," he thought. Instead, he shouted back, "Working on it. Just keep drinking." The noble laughed and threw an empty bottle at the floor. It shattered on the force field, the shards hovering in the suspended energy. A cheerful synthetic voice chimed over the arena-wide intercom. The sound was perfectly modulated to be soothing, which made the words it spoke even more horrific. "Welcome to the midday slaughter, brought to you by Tsingtao Munitions. Reminder to all patrons, blood splatter zones are distinct from beverage zones. Please consult your ticket. Tsingtao, we make the holes. You fill them." Rook shook his head. Chime. The arena's AI announcer. It was programmed with the personality of a helpful concierge and the morality of a landmine. "Rook." A voice crackled in his earpiece. It was his foreman. "Stop playing with the gravity. Shield failure and medical holding. Wing 4. Get up there before the prisoners figure out they can walk through the walls." "Wing 4? Rook frowned. "That's high security. I don't have clearance." "You do now," the foreman said. "Everyone else is busy scrubbing the sand for the main event. Move." Rook sighed, holstering his spanner. Another day, another disaster. He took the service lift up, bypassing the roaring crowds and the gambling dens. The medical holding wing was sterile, white, and terrifyingly quiet compared to the rest of the station. He swiped his badge at the security checkpoint, the heavy blast doors hissing open. The shield generator for cell block A was sparking rhythmically. Rook knelt before the panel, popping the cover. "Great," he muttered. "The flux coupler is fried." From the cell directly behind the emitter, a voice spoke. "You are the only human here who still looks like a person." Rook paused. He looked through the containment field, which was currently flickering, and saw a woman sitting on the edge of a biobed. She looked like she had gone 10 rounds with a thresher maw. Rook stood up, glancing at her. "And you look like you need a better travel agent." Mira Hale gave a dry, humorless chuckle. "I tried to book a cruise, ended up here. Who are you?" "The janitor? Maintenance," Rook corrected. "I keep the cage locked so the animals don't get out." "Charming," Mira said. She leaned forward, wincing as she moved. "Where are we? I mean, really?" "Varan," Rook said, turning back to the panel. "The Arena of Suns. You are in the medical wing, which means someone influential wants you alive. For now." Mira touched her neck, her fingers hovering over the tattoo. "Hey, Toaster!" Mira yelled suddenly at the ceiling. "When do I get some water?" Chime's voice floated down instantly. "Hydration privileges are reserved for winners. Current hydration status, 0. "Thank you for your feedback," Mira cursed, a long string of colorful invectives involving the AI's motherboard and a solar flare. "We have noted your suggestion regarding our motherboard," Chime replied pleasantly. "Have a magical day." Rook suppressed a smile. "Do not antagonize the house," he said. "It never loses." He finished bypassing the coupler. The shield hummed back to full power, stabilizing into a solid wall of blue energy. Rook looked at her one last time. "Keep your head down," he said quietly. "And if they offer you the red armor, do not take it. It is magnetic. It draws fire." "Why are you telling me this?" Mira asked. Rook picked up his toolkit. "Because us humans are an endangered species out here." He walked out, the doors sealing behind him. But the image of her eyes, sharp, intelligent, and hiding a deep well of panic, stayed with him. 2 hours later, Saren Kale entered the interrogation room attached to Mira's cell. She had removed her helmet, revealing her face. It was a calculated move. People trusted faces more than masks, even if the face belonged to the enemy. Mira was sitting at a metal table, her hands cuffed to the surface. "Comfortable?" Saren asked, sitting opposite her. "I have had worse dates," Mira said. "Usually the food is better, though." Saren placed a datapad on the table. She tapped the screen, and a holographic projection of the Reaper tattoo hovered between them. "Tell me about this," Saren said. Mira stared at the floating image. Her bravado faltered for a second. "I told you I don't know. Do not lie to me." "Mira, that mark stalled a squad of Dominion shock troopers. They think you are a ghost story. Are you?" Mira pulled against the cuffs. "I don't remember getting it, okay? I woke up in a med bay on a mining colony 3 years ago with a headache that felt like a drill and this ink on my neck. The doctor said it was just a gang tag. Gang tags do not emit encrypted biometric signals," Saren said calmly. Mira rubbed her temples. "Every time I try to think about before the colony, it's fuzz, static, just a voice." "What voice?" Mira looked up, her eyes wet. "A woman. She says, 'Don't let them read your throat.' That is all I have. I am a salvage pilot. I scavenge wrecks. I am nobody." Saren studied her. She believed her. The distress was too genuine, the confusion too raw. Saren deactivated the hologram. She had been digging while Mira sat in the cell. She had found something that made her blood run cold. There was a sealed order in the prisoner processing logs. It bore the cipher of the Golden Throne, the highest authority in the Dominion. The order was simple: immediate termination. But 5 minutes after that order was logged, a second order had overwritten it. This one was signed by Arena Management, authorized by a shell company linked to Valk Oren, the Arena Master. The new order read, "Live combat trials." Someone at the very top wanted Mira dead. Someone in the middle wanted to see what she could do first. "The arena is a complex machine," Saren said, choosing her words carefully. "There are layers here. You have become caught in a gear you do not understand." "So get me out," Mira said. "You are the commander. Open the door." Saren looked at the door. "If I open that door and let you go, the sensors in the hallway will flag you as escaping. The automated turrets will cut you in half before you reach the elevator, and if I override them, I am flagged as a traitor." "So I am dead either way," Mira said bitterly. "No," Saren said. She stood up. "I need time. I need to understand why the throne is afraid of a salvage pilot. Until then, you are safer in this cell than anywhere else in the galaxy." Saren turned to leave. "Wait," Mira called out. "What is your name?" Saren paused. "Kyle. That's it? Just Kyle?" "Saren Kyle," she said. "Well, Saren Kyle," Mira said, her voice trembling slightly. "Don't let me die in here." Saren walked out, the heavy door thudding shut. She walked briskly toward the command center, her mind racing. The conspiracy was not just a theory anymore. It was staring her in the face. Rook was in the ventilation shaft above the primary control room, replacing a filtration unit that was clogged with sand. It was a terrible job, but the vents carried sound perfectly. Below him, two technicians in pristine white lab coats, clean suits, were looking at a monitor. They were not arena staff. They didn't have the grease or the weariness. "Did you see the telemetry on the human?" one asked. "The Reaper subject?" "Yes. Neural activity is dormant. We need to wake it up," the second one said. "Valk wants a demonstration. If the protocol holds, we can ship the tech to the frontier garrisons by the end of the month. Project Reaper is finally going to pay off." Rook froze, his hand hovering over the filter. "Project Reaper. I heard they sent a recovery team to the sand yesterday," the first technician said. "Collected the adrenal glands from the loser of the lizard match." "Why?" "To calibrate the lattice," the second replied. "The boss wants to know exactly how much fear is required to trigger the override." Rook felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ventilation. They were harvesting biological data from the dead to program something. And this Reaper girl was the key. He finished the job silently and backed out of the shaft. He needed to find a drink, or a weapon. Saren burst into the arena master's office, bypassing the secretary. "Valk," she said sharply. Valk Oren looked up from his desk. He was a humanoid with pale, iridescent skin and a smile that had too many teeth. He wore robes of spun gold. "Commander Kyle," he said smoothly. "To what do I owe the pleasure? You scheduled the human, Mira Hale, for the midday novelty match." Valk shrugged. "The crowd loves a hopeless underdog, and the betting pool is stagnating. We need fresh meat." "I ordered her to medical holding," Saren said, her hand resting on the pommel of her sidearm. "She is potentially carrying a contagion." Valk stood up, walking around his desk. He smelled of expensive spices and rot. "My medical team cleared her. She is fit for combat. And frankly, Commander, you are becoming tedious with your concern for the inventory." He leaned in close, his voice dropping. "Unless, of course, you have a personal interest." Saren held his gaze. If she had a personal interest, and he knew it, her investigation was over. She would be purged. "I have an interest in order," Saren said coldly. "When your novelty act dies in 10 seconds, the crowd will be bored. It is bad business." Valk smiled. "Then let us hope she surprises us." "The match stands." Saren turned and marched out. She had played her hand and lost. Mira was going into the sand. She could not stop the match. If she tried to extract Mira now, the clean suits and Valk's private security would intercept them. But she could cheat. Saren hurried to the lower maintenance levels, to a junction box that controlled the environmental inputs for the arena floor. It was an older system, one she had studied during her first week here, noting its vulnerabilities. She plugged her gauntlet into the port. Chime. "Unauthorized access detected. Override code, Sigma 9 Blue," Saren whispered. Chime. "Access granted." "Hello, Commander. Would you like to adjust the ambient lighting?" Saren's fingers flew across the holographic interface. "No. Access gravity plate schematics for Sector 3. She watched the grid appear. Mira's fight was scheduled for Sector 3. The default setting was quicksand mode. Saren rewrote the code. She didn't turn off the traps. That would be too obvious. Instead, she inverted the trigger sensitivity. "When the gravity plate activates," Saren muttered as she typed, "do not crush." Launch. It was a dangerous gamble. If Mira wasn't fast enough, the launch would just throw her into a wall. But if she was fast, it was an escape route. Saren withdrew her interface cable just as a patrol of drones buzzed past the corridor junction. She smoothed her armor and walked away, her heart pounding. The roar of the crowd was a physical weight. It shook the dust from the ceiling of the staging tunnel. Mira Hale stood at the edge of the gate. She was wearing light gladiatorial armor that offered almost no protection, just leather and a few plates of ceramic. A short sword was strapped to her hip, a weapon she barely knew how to hold. Chime's voice boomed, amplified to godlike volume. "Ladies and gentlemen, sentients of all species, welcome to the highlight of the hour. In the red corner, standing 8 feet tall, the Butcher of Rax Prime." The gate opposite Mira opened. A creature that looked like a cross between a gorilla and a scorpion scuttled out, clacking its claws. The crowd screamed in delight, and in the blue corner, Chime continued, the voice dripping with mock pity. "A newcomer to our happy family. Give it up for the human scavenger." The gate in front of Mira groaned and began to lift. The light from the arena, 2 artificial suns burning in the domed ceiling, blinded her. The heat hit her like a hammer. Saren stood in the commander's box, high above the sand, watching through the reinforced glass. She gripped the railing until the metal groaned. Rook was watching from a maintenance monitor in the lower tunnels, holding his breath. Mira stepped out onto the sand. The ground shifted beneath her feet. The noise was deafening. She looked small. She looked breakable. She reached up and touched the tattoo on her neck. Saren watched her, the words she had spoken to the empty room echoing in her mind. "If that mark is real," Saren whispered to herself, "the Dominion is lying." Chime began the countdown. 3, 2, 1, fight! The Butcher of Rax Prime charged. Mira drew her sword, her hand shaking, and stepped into the light. The sand exploded. The moment the fight began, the arena of suns did not merely observe, it participated. A deep, subterranean groan vibrated through the stadium, shaking the bones of the 80,000 spectators screaming in the stands. Then, the physics of the world broke. The gravity plates beneath Sector 3 lurched. It was not a subtle tilt. The entire eastern quadrant of the arena floor snapped 90 degrees upward. What had been a flat desert floor instantly became a sheer vertical cliff face. Tons of crimson sand cascaded down like a granular waterfall, creating a choking red fog. Mira Hale did not scream. She did not freeze. While the Butcher of Rax Prime, a creature of muscle and chitin designed for straightforward slaughter, flailed its multiple limbs in a panic, scrabbling for purchase on the shifting ground. Mira moved. It was not a conscious decision. It was a switch flipping in the dark of her mind. As the ground tilted vertical, Mira's body adjusted her center of gravity before her brain could process the math. She dropped low, her boots finding traction on the lip of a rising gravity plate. The Butcher tumbled past her, roaring as it fell toward the new bottom of the arena, the impact zone where the gravity crushed everything to paste. But the arena was not done. The plates shifted again, rippling like the scales of a serpent. Saren Kale stood in the commander's box, her knuckles white as she gripped the railing. She had rigged the code. She had inverted the crush trigger, but timing was everything. "Now," she whispered, down on the sand. A localized gravity well detonated directly under Mira's feet. In a normal match, this would have pinned the fighter to the floor until their ribs snapped. But Saren's modification reversed the polarity. Instead of crushing her, the plate launched her. Mira shot upward, riding the invisible geyser of force. She ascended through the dust cloud, soaring 20 feet into the air. Time seemed to dilute into slow motion. She saw the Butcher below her, recovering its footing, its mandibles clicking in anticipation of her fall. It raised a jagged spear, ready to skewer her on the descent. Mira did not flail. In midair, she tucked her knees, rotated her body, and drew the short sword she had been given. Her mind was empty of fear. It was filled with a cold, geometric clarity. She saw the angle of the beast's neck armor. She saw the gap. She calculated the velocity. She did not feel like a salvage pilot anymore. She felt like a weapon that had just been taken off the shelf. She landed not on the sand, but on the beast's shoulders. The impact drove the air from the creature's lungs before it could thrash. Mira drove the sword down. She did not hack wildly. She made one precise surgical thrust into the nerve cluster at the base of the skull. The butcher seized, went rigid, and collapsed. Mira rolled off the carcass, landing in a crouch, sword raised, breath hissing through her teeth. The sand settled. The gravity plates slowly groaned back to a neutral, horizontal position. Silence slammed into the arena. The crowd did not cheer immediately. They were confused. They were used to messy, drawn-out butcheries, not this efficient blink-and-you-miss-it execution. The silence stretched for 3 seconds, then 4, high in the VIP tiers, enclosed in a bubble of luxury and filtered air. Senator Vax leaned forward in his floating chair. He was a man of excessive girth and excessive power, draped in the silk of endangered spiders. He lowered his wine glass. "Rewind that," the senator murmured to his aide. "Look at her movement. That was not a brawl. That was protocol." On the sand, Mira stood over the dead alien. She looked up at the blinding artificial suns, her chest heaving. The adrenaline began to fade, replaced by a shaking terror that she tried desperately to hide. "I am alive," she thought, the realization hitting her like a slap. I killed it. How did I know how to kill it? Deep in the maintenance tunnels, Rook Mercer stared at his monitor, his heart hammering against his ribs. The screen was a waterfall of scrolling code, displaying the real-time telemetry of the arena floor. He saw the spike. It was right there in the log, a manual override of the gravity emitter in Sector 3. Someone had flipped the polarity from compress to eject. If the arena security AI caught that, Mira would be disqualified and executed for cheating. And whoever wrote that code would be hunted down and flayed. Rook looked at the signature of the hack. It was elegant, minimalist. It masked itself as a system error caused by sand in the intake valves. But Rook knew code. This wasn't sand. This was a lifeline. "Someone upstairs wants her to live," Rook muttered. His fingers flew across his own keyboard. He did not delete the hack. That would leave a gap in the logs, a void that was just as suspicious as the crime itself. Instead, he buried it. He wrote a quick patch that simulated a power surge in the main generator, a surge that would theoretically cause random polarity flips across the grid. He backdated the surge to match the exact second of Mira's jump. "There," Rook whispered, hitting the execute key. "Now it is not a conspiracy. It is just bad wiring. And nobody gets fired for bad wiring in this dump. They just get yelled at." He leaned back in his chair, exhaling a breath he didn't know he had been holding. He looked at the feet of Mira standing in the arena, small and defiant against the vastness of the crowd. "Who are you?" he wondered. "And who is risking their neck to make sure you keep yours?" The extraction team did not look happy. Usually, when soldiers went onto the sand to retrieve a fighter, they were dragging a corpse or beating a defiant victor into submission. But as the squad approached Mira, they hesitated. She was still holding the sword. The blood of the butcher was black and viscous on her hands. "Drop the weapon," the squad leader barked, but his voice lacked the usual sadistic snap. He was looking at her neck. He was looking at the word Reaper. Mira dropped the sword. It clattered on the hard-packed sand. "I am complying," she said, her voice hoarse. "No need to wet your armor." The soldiers moved in, grabbing her arms. They were rough, but not brutal. There was a strange, vibrating tension in their grip. It was the way one held a live grenade, firmly, but with the terrifying knowledge that it could go off at any second. Half of them looked relieved that she had survived. The other half looked like they were escorting a plague carrier. Survival in the arena was supposed to be a matter of luck or strength, but Mira had survived with a strangeness that smelled of something forbidden. They marched her out of the light and into the dark, cooling tunnels of the understructure. As they passed a group of technicians, the chatter died instantly. Eyes followed her. The superstition was spreading faster than the news of the fight. "Orders from the top," the squad leader muttered to the intake warden. "She goes back to medical holding, not the cages." The warden, a scarred humanoid with one cybernetic eye, spat on the floor. "Since when do we pamper the meat?" "Since the meat started killing level 5 beasts in under 30 seconds, the leader replied. "Just book her." Mira was shoved into a holding cell, not the same one as before, but a similar sterile box. The door hissed shut, locking with a heavy final thud. She slid down the wall until she hit the floor, burying her face in her knees. Her hands were shaking so hard she had to clasp them together to make it stop. "Don't let them read your throat," she whispered to herself, repeating the voice from her fragmented memory. "Who are you? And why did you turn me into a killer?" Saren Kale did not go to the locker room. She went straight to the top of the spire, to the office of the arena master. The doors to Valkoran's sanctum slid open without her buzzing. He was expecting her. Valk stood by a panoramic window that overlooked the entire moon. The view was a nightmare of industry and suffering, rendered beautiful by distance. He held a crystal tumbler of blue liquid. "Commander," Valk said, not turning around, a spirited display. "The betting pools are in chaos. You have cost a lot of important people a lot of money today." Saren walked into the room, removing her helmet. She placed it on a side table with a deliberate clatter. "And I have made a lot of other people very rich," she said. "Volatility drives engagement. That is the first rule of the house, is it not?" Valk turned. His smile was a masterpiece of insincerity. He walked toward her, the silk of his robes whispering against the floor. "You are clever. Saren, dangerous. I like that. Most commanders are just bludgeons. You are a scalpel." He stopped a foot away from her, invading her personal space with the casual arrogance of a man who owned everything he saw. "But do not think I did not see the anomaly in Sector 3, Valk said softly. "Gravity plates do not typically reverse themselves to save a scavenger." Saren did not blink. "The infrastructure is rotting. Valk, I have filed 3 reports this month requesting an overhaul of the emitter grid. If you spent less on importing wine and more on maintenance, your death traps would work as advertised." Valk laughed, a dry, rasping sound. He reached out, his long fingers brushing the pauldron of her armor. "You are too pretty to be this moral, Commander. It is a waste of good genetics." Saren resisted the urge to break his wrist. "Where does the funding come from?" "Valk? The arena generates revenue, but not enough to cover the tech I saw in the pit. The holographic biomes, the neural audio drivers, that is military-grade hardware." Valk walked back to his desk and sat down, gesturing for her to do the same. She remained standing. "We have sponsors," Valk said. "A coalition of forward-thinking senators, and certain weapons manufacturers." "Weapons manufacturers?" "The arena is not just a circus." "Saren, It is a laboratory. Where else can you test bio-augments and psychological triggers in a live-fire environment without the pesky interference of ethics committees? Saren felt a chill crawl up her spine. The prisoners were not just entertainment. They were test subjects. And Mira Hale? Saren asked. Is she a test subject? Valk took a sip of his blue wine. Mira Hale is an anomaly. And anomalies are valuable. Keep her alive. Commander, for now. The investors want to see if the lightning strikes twice. Saren turned to leave. She needed fresh air. She needed to wash the smell of his perfume off her armor. Oh. And Saren? Valk called out as she reached the door. She paused. Do not let your pet mechanic look too closely at the logs. Accidents happen in the tunnels. It would be a shame to lose such a diligent worker. Saren walked out, her blood boiling. He knew about Rook. Rook was wiping down a conduit in the lower gallery when a shadow fell over him. He looked up to see his foreman, a heavy-set brute named Grak, flanked by 2 security drones. Mercer, Grak grunted. Rook stood up, wiping his hands on a rag. What is it, Grak? I finished the Sector 3 patch. The surge is contained. I am not here about the surge, Grak said. I am here to give you a friendly reminder. Grak stepped closer, pushing a thick finger into Rook's chest. You have a debt to pay, human. You are here to fix pipes and scrub filters. You are not here to audit the weight logs. You are not here to ask why the corpses from the Tuesday matches are weighed before and after they are incinerated. Rook kept his face neutral. I don't know what you are talking about. Grak leaned in, his breath smelling of stale ration bars. Keep it that way. If you get curious, you end up in the sand, and you don't have a magic tattoo to save you. Grak shoved him back against the conduit and walked away, the drones hovering menacingly for a second before following. Rook watched them go, his hands balled into fists. He wasn't just fixing pipes. He was servicing a slaughterhouse that was hiding something massive. And now, they had threatened him, which meant he was right. Rook took the back corridors toward the medical wing. He needed to check the shield generator again, or at least, that was his excuse. He needed to see Mira. He needed to know if the magic tattoo Grak mentioned was the reason the gravity plate had saved her. He rounded a corner in the restricted zone and nearly collided with a wall of white armor. Saren Kale grabbed him by the collar of his coveralls and slammed him into the bulkhead. What did you do to the logs? She hissed. Rook blinked, recovering from the impact. He looked at the commander's face. She wasn't wearing her helmet. Her violet eyes were blazing with a mixture of fury and fear. I fixed them, Rook snapped, shoving her hand away. You are welcome, by the way. Saren stepped back, but she didn't retreat. She blocked the corridor, her presence filling the narrow space. You hacked the telemetry, she accused. You covered up my trace. I covered up a sloppy rig that would have gotten you executed. Rook shot back. You inverted the polarity, but you left a signature trail a mile wide. If I hadn't masked it as a power surge, Valk's security AI would have flagged you 10 minutes ago. Saren stared at him. The anger in her eyes shifted to confusion, then to a grudging respect. Why? She asked. Why protect me? You barely know me. I wasn't protecting you. Rook lied, his voice dropping. I was protecting the girl. If they found out the fight was rigged, they would have killed her on the spot to save face. Saren crossed her arms. You are risking your life. Mechanic, Valk knows you are looking at the body disposal logs. He threatened you. Rook laughed, a short, bitter sound. I am a debt slave, Commander. My life is already risk. At least this way, I get to choose the danger. They stood there in the dim light of the corridor, the air between them thick with unsaid words. They were enemies by caste, a commander and a slave, but allies by circumstance. "You enjoy it, don't you?" Rook said suddenly, his voice low. "Enjoy what?" "The power. You walk around in that armor, terrifying everyone, pretending you are just doing your duty. But you like being the one holding the leash." Saren stepped forward, closing the gap until she was inches from him. She had to tilt her head up slightly to look him in the eyes, but she lost none of her dominance. "I do not enjoy the leash. Rook. I enjoy the fact that I am the only thing standing between the leash and the throat." The air in the corridor seemed to heat up. Rook looked down at her. He saw the fatigue behind the mask of the commander. He saw a woman who was just as trapped as he was. Only her cage was made of gold and duty. His breath hitched. He wanted to say something biting, something to push her away, but the words stuck in his throat. Saren's gaze dropped to his mouth, then snapped back up to his eyes. Her voice turned quiet, controlled, vibrating with a tension that terrified them both. "Get out of my way, Mercer, before I have you arrested for insubordination." Rook didn't move, not immediately. For a second, he thought about kissing her. It was a stupid, suicidal thought, but it was there. Burning bright. Attention. Personnel. Chime's cheerful voice blasted from the speaker directly above their heads, shattering the moment. "Are you feeling lonely? Purchase a Love Luck token for the evening match. Guaranteed to improve your romantic fortunes by 12%. Terms and conditions apply." From the medical cell adjacent to the corridor, Mira's voice rang out, muffled by the door but distinct. "Read the room. Toaster!" Rook flinched. Saren stepped back, the spell broken. She cleared her throat, her armor adjusting with a soft hiss. "Go back to your tunnels, Rook," she said, her voice returning to its icy command tone. "And stop hacking my operations. Stop making sloppy mistakes and I won't have to," Rook replied. He walked past her, brushing her shoulder. The contact sent a jolt through him that he felt all the way to his boots. Saren waited until he was gone before she moved. She needed to focus. The mission, the conspiracy. She activated her stealth cloak, a shimmering distortion field that rendered her nearly invisible to visual sensors, and slipped into the restricted elevator that led to the sub-basement. The blueprints of the arena showed a solid foundation of concrete under the medical wing, but the power drain readings she had analyzed showed massive energy consumption in a sector that shouldn't exist. She descended. The elevator stopped at a floor that wasn't on the panel. The doors opened, It was a cavernous chamber, filled with rows of humming server banks and stasis tanks. In the center of the room was a massive holographic display, a neural lattice. It was a 3D map of a brain, glowing with synaptic fire. Saren walked toward it. She recognized the brain patterns. They were combat data, fear responses, aggression triggers. She pulled up the file header. Subject, Mira Hale. Protocol, Reaper. Status, active. She scrolled through the data. It wasn't just a nickname. Reaper was a dormant personality construct, a combat AI wet-wired into a human brain. The logs detailed the history. Mira had been captured by a Dominion Black Ops team 3 years ago. They had erased her memories, implanted the lattice, and trained her as a sleeper assassin. The tattoo was a biometric key, a receiver for command signals. But then, the project had been scrapped. Budget cuts, political shifts. The subjects were dumped back into the galaxy with their memories wiped, hidden in plain sight, until someone at the arena found her. Saren read the final entry. Objective: stress test the Reaper protocol. Trigger full activation. If successful, mass-produced the lattice for Dominion infantry. They were trying to turn soldiers into meat puppets. No fear, no disobedience, just programmable killers. And Mira was the prototype. Saren downloaded the files to her secure drive. This was treason. Possessing this data was a death sentence. She didn't care. Saren returned to the medical wing. She dismissed the guards outside Mira's cell. "You are dismissed. I will conduct the interrogation personally." The guards left. Saren unlocked the door and stepped inside. Mira was sitting on the bed, staring at the wall. She looked up. "Did you come to congratulate me?" Mira asked. "Or to tell me who I am?" Saren sat down next to her. She deactivated the room's audio surveillance with a jammer she pulled from her belt. "I know what Reaper is," Saren said. Mira stiffened. "Tell me." "It is a program," Saren said softly. "They put it in your head. The skills you used today, the way you moved. That was the lattice taking over. You were trained to be an assassin, Mira, and then they made you forget." Mira stared at her hands. "So I am a robot? A remote-controlled toy?" "No," Saren said fiercely. "You are human. The program is just a tool they buried in you. But you are still you. You fought it. You chose to survive." Mira laughed, a broken sound. "Why are you telling me this? You are one of them." Saren took off her gauntlet. She looked at her own hand, pale and trembling. "Because if I do not stop this, they will do it to everyone. They want to turn the entire army into things like you. No choice, no conscience." Saren looked at Mira. "I am going to get you out of here." Mira looked at her, searching her face for the lie. She didn't find one. "Okay," Mira whispered. "How?" "We need help," Saren said. "We need someone who knows the tunnels." An hour later, in a disused supply closet, the three of them met. Rook looked from Saren to Mira. "So, let me get this straight. She is a sleeper agent. You are a traitor princess, and I am the idiot who is going to drive the getaway car." "That sums it up," Mira said dryly. "I am not a princess," Saren corrected. "I am a commander." "Same thing," Rook said. "Why should I help you? I could sell you both out to Valk and buy my freedom tomorrow." Saren looked at him. "Because you hate being owned. Rook, I heard it in your voice. You hate the collar more than you love your life." Rook stared at her. The sarcasm drained out of his face. He looked tired. "Fine," he said. "I'm in. But not for heroism. I'm in because if I fix one more gravity plate, I am going to hang myself with the power cable." "Good," Saren said. "Now, here is the plan." The plan required preparation. Rook and Saren had to synchronize the arena's maintenance cycle with the guard rotation. They spent the next few hours in the dark of a maintenance shaft, waiting for the shift change. It was cramped. The only light came from the LEDs on Rook's wrist comp. Saren sat with her back against the pipe, knees drawn up. Rook sat opposite her. "You are terrified, aren't you?" Rook asked quietly. Saren didn't look at him. "If I am wrong, if the throne isn't rotten, then I am betraying everything my family stood for. My mother, she believes in the Dominion. Maybe the Dominion isn't worth believing in," Rook said. Saren looked at him. "It is easy for you to say. You have nothing to lose." "I have everything to lose," Rook said. He leaned forward. "I have my self-respect. I have the fact that I never bowed to them, even when they put a price on my head." He reached out, his hand hovering near hers. "I am terrified too." "Saren," he admitted. "Of what?" "That you will win. That we will take down Valk, and the Dominion will praise you, and you will go back to being a high-born commander, and I will just be..." The help. That you will become another person who uses me. Saren looked at his hand. She reached out and took it. Her skin was cool, his was warm and rough. I am not using you. Rook. She squeezed his hand. He squeezed back. The grip was desperate, anchoring them both in the dark. They leaned in. The distance closed. Their faces were inches apart, obscured by shadow. Saren could feel his breath on her lips. It would be so easy to close the gap. To find comfort in the only other person who understood the madness of this place. But she stopped. She pulled back, just an inch. Not here, she whispered, her voice shaking. Not while we are still in the cage. Rook nodded, swallowing hard. He pulled his hand away, but the ghost of her touch lingered. Right, he said, his voice rough. First we survive, then we figure this out. The comms unit on Saren's belt buzzed. Commander Kale, the guard captain's voice crackled. Report to the VIP box immediately. The senators have arrived for the special event. Saren stood up, the moment shattered. She put her helmet back on, hiding her face, hiding the fear and the desire. On my way, she replied. The VIP box was a riot of color and excess. Senators from a dozen worlds mingled, drinking rare liquors and laughing. Valk-Oren stood at the podium, his arms spread wide. The giant screens above the arena flickered to life. My esteemed guests, Valk boomed. Tonight, we have a treat for you. A revelation. The screens showed Mira's face. A graphic overlaid the image. The Reaper. The crowd roared. The girl you saw today was just a warm-up, Valk announced, by popular demand, and with the generous sponsorship of the High Council, we are proud to announce a new tournament bracket. The screen changed. It showed a ladder of combatants. At the bottom was Mira. At the top was a silhouette labeled champion. The Reaper fights again, Valk shouted, and she will keep fighting until she breaks, or until she rules. Saren stood in the back of the box watching the screen. She saw Mira in her cell, looking up at the monitor, her face pale. They weren't just going to kill her. They were going to turn her into a legend. And then, when the galaxy was watching, they were going to pull the trigger on the program and show everyone that even a legend could be owned. Saren touched the hilt of her blade. Let them try, she thought, down in the tunnels. Rook watched the same screen. He picked up his wrench. Let's go to work, he whispered. The arena of suns did not believe in stagnation. Over the next 3 cycles, the environment shifted with sadistic creativity. The sand was replaced by the fracture fields, a landscape of razor-sharp glass shards freezing under a sub-zero artificial sky. Then came the storm jungle. A holographic rainforest where the trees were hard light projections and the rain was electrified, stinging the skin like liquid hornet stings. Mira Hale fought through it all. She fought not with the grace of a duelist, but with the desperate, ugly efficiency of a survivor. When a 6-legged predator stalked her through the glass fields, she didn't try to outrun it. She lured it onto a thin sheet of ice and smashed the pane, sending the beast plummeting into the machinery below. She was becoming something dangerous to the Dominion. She was becoming a favorite. The drone cameras buzzed around her face as she sat panting on a simulated tree branch, waiting for the lightning rain to stop. She looked directly into the lens. Is this the best the budget can do? Mira asked, wiping blood from her lip. The graphics on this tree are glitching. I want a refund on my death sentence. In the prisoner holding blocks, huddled around communal screens, thousands of condemned souls watched. They didn't cheer, they were too beaten for that. But they smiled. Mira was weaponizing humor. She was taking the terror of the arena and turning it into a farce. Every joke she cracked was a reminder that the system could kill them, but it could not make them respect it. While Mira played the jester in hell, Saren Kale descended into the shadows of Varen's Undercity. She wore a civilian cloak, hiding her armor and her crest. The meeting point was a decommissioned water recycling plant, a place that smelled of rust and stagnation. Her contact was a woman named Jinx, a former Dominion intelligence officer who had vanished from the records 10 years ago. Jinx sat in the darkness, smoking a narcotic stick that glowed sickly green. "You are playing a dangerous game." "Commander," Jinx said, her voice like grinding gravel. "The arena master knows you are poking holes in his ship. I need to know the end game." "Jinx," Saren said, "why the sudden escalation? Why the live fire tests on neural lattices?" Jinx exhaled a cloud of smoke. "It is not just the arena, it is the throne." Saren stiffened. "Explain." "The senators backing Valk aren't just looking for profit," Jinx said. "They are manufacturing a crisis. The plan is simple. Use the arena to radicalize the human populations. Blame the unrest on human terrorists. Stage a few massacres in the outer colonies." "And then?" Saren asked, though she already felt the answer settling in her stomach like lead. "And then declare martial law," Jinx said. "The regent steps down for health reasons, and a new puppet leader steps up to restore order. They don't just want to control the arena, Saren. They want to turn the entire Dominion into a police state. And your little friend, the Reaper? She is the match they are going to use to light the fuse." Saren left the plant, her mind racing. It was a coup. A coup dressed up as public safety. Rook Mercer was fighting his own war in the logistics sector. He had swiped a high-level access key from a careless guard during a shift change, and now he was scrolling through the shipping manifests on a stolen datapad. He hid behind a stack of crate containers, his eyes scanning the lines of code. "Export Manifest 909, Rook read under his breath. "Destination, Frontier Garrison 7, cargo, neural conditioning units, quantity, 5,000. He tapped the file to expand it. The units weren't for prisoners. They were for Dominion soldiers. The throne wasn't just building mind-controlled assassins. They were planning to lobotomize their own army, turning loyal troops into flesh-and-blood drones that would never question an order to fire on civilians. Rook felt a cold sweat break out on his back. He downloaded the file and wiped his trace. He had to get back to the other. He turned to leave and ran straight into a patrol bot. The machine screeched, its stun baton extending. Rook didn't hesitate. He swung a heavy wrench he had tucked in his belt, smashing the bot's sensor array. The machine flailed, striking him across the ribs with the baton before Rook delivered a final crushing blow to its power core. He limped away, clutching his side, the smell of ozone and burnt fabric clinging to him. They met in a disused ventilation hub deep within the station's core. The hum of the massive fans drowned out their voices from any listening devices. Saren was already there, pacing. When Rook arrived, limping and pale, she stopped. "You are hurt," she said. It was not a question. "I fought a toaster." Rook grunted, sliding down the wall to sit on the grate. "I won." "Barely." Saren knelt beside him. "Let me see." She pushed his hand away and lifted his shirt. The stun baton had left a nasty, angry burn across his ribs. The skin blistered and red. Saren's hands, usually so steady on the hilt of a sword, trembled slightly as she applied a cooling gel from her medkit. Rook hissed through his teeth. "Sorry," Saren whispered. "It is fine," Rook said, watching her face. "You have good hands for a killer." Saren paused. She looked at the burn, then up at his eyes. The space between them felt suddenly very small. "We have a problem," Saren said, her voice low. Jinx confirmed it. The coup is real. They are going to use Mira to start a war. Rook nodded. And I found the gun they are going to use. They are shipping the mind control tech to the army. If we don't stop this, there won't be a free mind left in the Dominion. Mira was sitting on a crate nearby, examining a piece of scrap metal. She looked up. So I am the prototype, she said. Saren turned to her. It is worse than that. Come here. Let me look at the mark. Mira walked over. Saren activated the scanner on her gauntlet, running it over the Reaper tattoo. She magnified the image on her holographic display. It is not just ink, Saren said, pointing to a faint metallic thread woven into the skin. Look at the weave. It is a microfilament, a transmitter, a trigger? Mira asked. A physical key, Saren corrected. Someone paid to brand you with this. It connects directly to the arena's central processor. If they send the right signal, or if you die in a specific way. I blow up, Mira guessed. Or you unlock something, Saren said. A back door into the network. Or a kill switch that fries every lattice connected to the system. You are a walking detonator. Mira. Great, Mira said, rubbing her neck. I always wanted to be explosive. Saren turned back to Rook, applying a bandage to his side. Her fingers lingered on his skin for a second longer than necessary. Rook caught her wrist gently. Saren. She froze. She looked at him, her violet eyes wide and vulnerable in the dim light. The armor she wore felt like a lie. Beneath it, she was just a woman terrified of losing the only things that felt real. You should not be touching me, Rook said softly. You are a commander. I am a grease monkey. If they catch you, if they catch me. I am dead anyway, Saren said. Her voice was thick with an emotion she had suppressed for years. I am tired of the uniform. Rook, I am tired of the games. Rook watched her like she was a sunrise he was afraid to touch, something beautiful that would burn him if he got too close. I think about you, Rook confessed. His voice was rough, at the worst times. When I am fixing the gravity plates, when I am trying to sleep, I think about you and it makes me angry because I know I can never have you. Saren's breath hitched. She leaned in. I dream of dropping it, she whispered. The rank, the armor, everything, just to be... Saren, just to be wanted by someone who does not care about my title. She leaned closer. Their foreheads nearly touched. Their breaths mingled, hot and desperate in the cool air of the vent shaft. If I let myself, Saren murmured, her eyes dropping to his lips. I won't know how to stop. Rook's hand moved up to cup her jaw. Then don't stop. The air crackled with a desire that was equal parts hunger and grief. They were two people drowning, finding the only other solid thing in the ocean. A loud clatter from the crate interrupted them. Please don't start a tragic love story in a ventilation duct. Mira's voice cut through the tension like a knife. It is unsanitary. And I really don't want to watch you two make out while I am contemplating my existence as a bomb. Saren and Rook pulled apart instantly, both flushing. Mira hopped off the crate. Actually, start it later, we need the morale. But right now, we have a job to do. Saren cleared her throat, standing up and smoothing her uniform. Her face was burning. Right, Saren said. The job. The plan was madness. But madness was the only currency they had left. Valk kept his personal archives in a localized vault in the VIP penthouse, an offline server room that was impenetrable to remote hacking. If they wanted the proof of the conspiracy, they had to physically break in. Tonight was the Celestial Gala, the one night of the year when the arena hosted the entire Senate for a blackout tie event. We infiltrate, Saren said. We steal the data, and we use it to burn them down. The ballroom of the VIP penthouse was a swirling galaxy of silk, jewels, and power. The ceiling was a transparent dome looking out into the nebula, and the guests sparkled like stars. Saren Kale entered the room, and the conversation stopped. She was not wearing her armor. She was wearing a gown of woven bioluminescent fiber that shifted color from midnight blue to deep violet as she moved. It clung to her like a second skin, elegant and severe. She looked every inch the high-born noble, radiant and terrifying. She moved through the crowd, nodding to senators who smiled with teeth that cost more than planets. Rook was less conspicuous. He wore the stiff gray uniform of the service staff, carrying a tray of drinks. He moved with his head down, blending into the furniture. "Do not drop the tray," Saren's voice whispered in his earpiece. "I am a pilot, not a waiter," Rook muttered back, weaving through a group of laughing admirals. "And this collar itches." "Where's the package?" Saren asked, smiling at a duke who tried to catch her eye. "The package is complaining," Mira's voice came over the comms. Mira was currently curled up inside a large anti-grav supply crate that was being floated toward the kitchen service entrance. "It smells like feet in here," Mira hissed, "and rotting fruit. Why do I always get the box?" "Because you are the secret weapon," Saren said. "And because you fit." Rook reached the service corridor that led to the private offices. He tapped the keypad, using the code Saren had lifted from Jinx. The door slid open. "I am in," Rook said. He pushed the supply crate into the hallway. He popped the latches, and Mira tumbled out, gasping for air. "Next time, I wear the dress," she said, dusting off her flight suit. "Focus," Rook said. "The vault is 2 doors down." They moved quickly. The vault door was a slab of black metal, scanning for biometric authorization. "Saren, we are at the door," Rook said. "We need the override." In the ballroom, Saren spotted Valkorun. The arena master was holding court near the bar. She approached him, her smile sharp. "Arena master," she said. "A lovely party." Valk turned, his eyes widening as he took in her appearance. "Commander, you look devastating." Saren stepped close, placing a hand on his arm. She activated the scanner hidden in her ring. "I try my best," she said. "I wanted to apologize for our friction lately. The stress of the games." Valk preened. He was arrogant enough to believe she was flirting. "It is forgotten, my dear. Tonight is for celebration." Saren's ring chimed softly. She had cloned his biosignature. "Enjoy the evening." "Valk," she said, withdrawing her hand. She transmitted the code. In the hallway, the vault door hissed and unlocked. "Nice work, Princess," Rook whispered. The vault was cold. Rows of data slates lined the walls. Rook plugged his decoder into the central terminal. "Searching for contracts," he muttered. Keywords: Reaper, Protocol, Throne. The screen flashed. A file opened. "Got it," Rook said. He pulled up the document. It was a funding agreement for the Reaper field tests. It authorized the kidnapping of human subjects, the illegal implantation of neural tech, and the planned massacre in the arena to incite the war. "Look at the signatures," Mira said, pointing to the bottom of the screen. There were 12 signatures, senators, generals, weapon magnates, and one at the very bottom, a seal of royal wax. Rook froze. He looked at the name. Regent Kale, Saren's mother. Rook transmitted the image to Saren's optical display. Saren stood in the middle of the ballroom, surrounded by music and laughter. The image appeared in her vision. She saw her mother's handwriting, elegant, precise, deadly. Her world cracked. It didn't shatter with a bang. It broke with a silent, sickening lurch. She laughed once. It was a sharp, broken sound that made a nearby waiter flinch. "Saren?" Rook's voice was worried. "Saren, did you see it?" "I see it," Saren whispered. She realized with a horrifying clarity that she hadn't been hunting corruption. She had been guarding it. Her entire life, her duty, her honor, was a shield for her mother's monsters. "We have the data," Rook said. "We are leaving." "Wait," Mira said from the vault. Mira was staring at the terminal. When the file had opened, her tattoo had started to burn. She reached up, touching the ink. The screen flickered. A video file autoplayed. It was old footage. A laboratory. A woman in a white coat was speaking to the camera. "Subject 01 is showing resistance," the woman said. "She refuses to kill the simulation targets. The lattice is active, but her will is stronger." Mira watched the screen. She saw herself, younger, terrified, strapped to a chair. The woman on the screen leaned in. "We are going to wipe her memory, but we cannot wipe the instinct. The Reaper protocol is designed to override choice. But this subject, she keeps choosing." The video cut to static. Mira swayed. A memory flashed in her mind, bright and blinding. Not the woman on the screen, but the woman's voice in her ear, whispering during the procedure. "Reaper is not death," the voice said. "Reaper is choice." Mira gasped, clutching the terminal. "They didn't just put a program in me," she whispered. "They put a choice in me. Intruder alert." The vault's AI screamed. Silent alarm triggered. "Locking down sector. You run!" Saren shouted over the comms. The gala turned into chaos. Security blast doors began to slam shut across the penthouse. Saren abandoned her cover. She hitched up her gown and ran, shoving a senator into a fountain. She sprinted toward the service corridor. Rook and Mira burst out of the vault just as a squad of elite guards rounded the corner. "Stop them!" the captain shouted. Rook threw a flash grenade he had improvised from a power cell. It detonated with a blinding white light. "Move!" Rook yelled. They sprinted down the hallway. Saren met them at the junction. "We are cut off," Saren shouted. "The elevators are locked. We have to go through the maintenance gravity chutes," Rook said. "That is suicide," Mira yelled. "It is better than execution." They dove into the chute just as plasma fire scorched the wall where they had been standing. The chute was a nightmare. Gravity fluctuated wildly. 1 second they were falling, the next they were sliding sideways. Saren's gown tore, revealing the combat bodysuit she wore underneath. She drew a collapsible blade from her thigh holster, alien tech that hummed with violet energy. A drone intercepted them, blades spinning. Saren kicked off the wall, flipping in midair. She sliced the drone in half with a single fluid motion, her movements looking more like a dance than a fight. Rook used his multi-tool to hotwire the hatches as they flew past, jamming them shut behind them to slow the pursuit. Mira was terrified, but her body moved on its own. When a guard leaned into the chute to fire, Mira didn't think. She threw a heavy wrench with unnatural precision, hitting the guard squarely in the throat. "I did not mean to do that," she screamed as they plummeted. "You are doing great," Rook yelled back. They crashed out of the chute onto the landing deck of the private hangar. They rolled, bruised and gasping. They scrambled toward the nearest shuttle, but the hangar lights slammed on. Valkoran stood between them and the ship. He was flanked by 24 heavy troopers and a massive combat mech. He was slow clapping. "Bravo," Valk said, his voice amplified. A valiant effort, truly cinematic. Saren stepped forward, her blade raised. "It is over. Valk. We have the data. We have the signatures." Valk smiled. He looked at Saren with a pity that was worse than hatred. "My dear Saren," he said, Do you really think a data slate matters? Do you think the galaxy cares about signatures? He stepped closer, safe behind his wall of guns. Your mother signed that order because she knows what keeps the Dominion together. Fear, order, control. We are not the villains, Commander. We are the architects. He gestured to the troopers. Surrender the data and the girl, and I will let the mechanic live. Saren looked at Rook. He was bleeding again. She looked at Mira, who was trembling but standing her ground. She looked at Valk. No, Saren said. Valk sighed. A shame. He tapped his earpiece. Bring the cameras online. A dozen drone cameras descended from the ceiling, their red recording lights blinking on. Smile for the cameras. Saren, Valk whispered. Your family built this arena. Now let's see you die in it. The mech powered up its rotary cannons. The barrels began to spin. Saren tightened her grip on her sword. Rook raised his small pistol. Mira touched her neck. The transition from the penthouse to the arena box was not a walk. It was a procession of the damned. Valgoran did not throw Saren Kale in a cell. He did something far more cruel. He cleaned her up. He had his attendants polish her armor until it gleamed like a mirror, and he placed her at his right hand in the VIP viewing deck, a silent endorsement of his madness. To the 80,000 screaming fans in the stands and the billions watching via the neural net, Saren looked like the dutiful commander, standing stoic beside the arena master. In reality, she was a statue held in place by the threat of immediate execution. Valk had made it clear. If she stepped out of line, the snipers positioned in the rafters would not aim for her. They would aim for Rook, who was currently being held in the lower maintenance bay, and for Mira, who was waiting in the dark of the entry tunnel. Saren stood rigid, her hands clasped behind her back. The noise of the crowd was a physical assault, a rhythmic chanting of names and death wishes. A chime sounded in her ear, a priority override on her private comms channel. Saren blinked, activating the retinal display. Text scrolled across her vision, stark and blue. Sender, the Regent. Message, come home. Saren, the game is finished. Return to the capital within 6 hours and renounce your investigation, or the House of Kale will declare you a traitor and strip your lineage. Do not test my love for you against my duty to the throne. It was cold. It was maternal in the way a glacier is maternal. Ancient, heavy, and capable of crushing anything that moved against it. Saren felt a hollow ache in her chest. Her mother did not ask if she was safe. She asked if she was obedient. Valk leaned over, swirling a glass of amber liquid. She is worried about you, he whispered, his voice oily. A mother's love is a powerful thing. Do not throw it away for a mechanic and a lab rat. I am not throwing anything away, Saren said, her voice flat. I am seeing clearly for the first time. Valk chuckled. Clarity is often fatal. Commander, smile. The cameras are panning to us. Saren forced the muscles of her face into a neutral mask as the drone cameras buzzed past. But beneath the armor, her heart was a drum beating a war rhythm. She needed to speak to Rook. She needed to know if the second phase of the heist was even possible, or if they were just waiting to die. My gauntlet is malfunctioning, Saren said loudly. The power coupling is loose. I need a technician. Valk raised an eyebrow. Now. Valk, Saren said, turning to him. Unless you want the commander of the Royal Guard to look like a beggar on a galactic stream. Valk waved his hand dismissively. Send for the human, but he comes with 2 guards, and you have 3 minutes. The private armory adjacent to the VIP box was a cold room of gunmetal gray and weapon racks. Rook Mercer was shoved through the door by 2 heavy troopers. He looked like he had gone 10 rounds with a gravity press. His lip was split, and there was a dark bruise blossoming on his jaw, but his eyes were sharp. "Leave us," Saren ordered the guards. The guards hesitated. "I said leave us," Saren barked, channeling every ounce of her command authority. "I need to calibrate the weapon systems. Unless you are certified in high-yield plasma dynamics, get out." The guard stepped back, intimidated by the sheer force of her will, and the door hissed shut. The moment they were alone, the mask fell. Saren slumped against a weapon rack, the breath leaving her in a shuddering gasp. Rook was there in a second, disregarding protocol, disregarding the distance that was supposed to exist between them. "Did he hurt you?" Rook asked, his eyes scanning her for injuries. Saren shook her head. "He is parading me. Rook, we are out of time. The match is starting in 10 minutes. We have to run," Rook said, his voice urgent. He grabbed her shoulders. "Listen to me. I saw a shuttle on the lower deck with a weak locking mechanism. I can hotwire it. We can take Mira and go. We can disappear into the fringe." "And leave them?" Saren asked, pulling back. "Leave who? The millions of people this lie is going to kill," Saren said. "If we run, Valk wins, the Senate wins. They will use the footage of Mira's death to start the war anyway, and nobody will know the truth. We can't save the galaxy." "Saren," Rook argued, his voice rising. "We are 3 people. One of us is a bomb, one is a slave, and you are about to be executed by your own mother. I cannot leave," Saren shouted. She grabbed his collar, bunching the fabric of his rough jumpsuit in her armored fists. She was furious, shaking with the adrenaline of the trap. "Do you think I want to die here?" Saren hissed, her face inches from his. "Do you think I don't want to get on that ship with you? But if we run, everything we have done means nothing." Rook looked at her. He saw the terror she was hiding behind the anger. He saw the woman who was trying to hold up the sky because she had been told it was her job since birth. He didn't pull away. He reached up and took her wrists, his hands gentle, holding her shaking arms steady. He didn't fight her. He grounded her. "Saren," he said softly. "Don't," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Don't tell me to be rational." "I wasn't going to," Rook said. The anger drained out of her, replaced by a desperate, aching need. She looked at his mouth. The world outside the door was burning and the soldiers were waiting. The Regent was drafting her death warrant. In this room, there was only the hum of the air recyclers and the man who saw her not as a title, but as a person. She pulled him down. Or maybe he pulled her up. It didn't matter. They kissed. It was not a pretty kiss. It was not the kind of kiss found in the romance hollows aimed at teenagers. It was desperate. It tasted of blood from his split lip and salt from the tears she refused to shed. It was a collision, a frantic attempt to say everything they couldn't put into words. Fear, regret, hope, desire. It was the feeling of breathing after drowning. Rook's hands moved to the back of her neck, tangling in her hair, pulling her closer as if he could merge their atoms. Saren pressed herself against him, the hard lines of her armor digging into his chest. But he didn't flinch. For a moment, the political conspiracy and the alien monsters didn't exist. There was only the heat of his skin and the desperate pressure of his mouth. They broke apart, gasping, foreheads pressed together. Saren's eyes were closed, her breathing ragged. Rook kept his hands on her face, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones. "We are idiots," Rook whispered, his voice wrecked. "Yes," Saren breathed. Unauthorized intimacy detected. The cheerful voice of Chime blared from the ceiling speaker. Please maintain a distance of 6 inches for workplace safety. Thank you. Damn it, Rook cursed, looking up at the speaker. I hate that machine, Saren muttered, a laugh bubbling up through the sob in her throat. They stepped back, the distance returning, but the energy in the room had changed. It was no longer frantic. It was resolved. Rook looked at her. Okay, we don't run. We fight. How? Saren asked. Valk has the frequency jammed. Even if we get the data, we can't broadcast it. The royal cipher, Rook said. It is blocking the upload. But you are Kale. You have the bloodline key. Saren went still. If I use my biosignature to override the jammer, I am publicly confirming that I am overriding the throne's orders. It is treason, Rook said. High treason. Saren looked at her reflection in the polished steel of a blast shield. She saw the crest of her house. Then let it be treason, she said. The arena was a cauldron of noise. The lights dimmed, focusing on the center of the pit. The sand had been cleared. In its place, the holographic generators had created a nightmare landscape, a labyrinth of obsidian walls and pools of boiling liquid light. Chime's voice boomed, echoing like the voice of a god. Citizens of the Dominion, you have seen her bleed. You have seen her kill. But can she survive the legend? The crowd screamed Mira's name, but it wasn't a cheer of support. It was the baying of wolves waiting for the deer to fall. The gates opened. Mira Hale walked out. She looked small. She was wearing the same light armor, battered and scorched from the previous rounds. She carried a spear she had scavenged, the tip glowing with thermal energy. Opposite her, the ground rumbled. A massive section of the floor retracted, and a platform rose. Standing on it was not a beast. It was a machine, a Dominion warwalker, a bipedal tank standing 20 feet tall, armed with rotary cannons and a gravity hammer. It was an execution, a human with a spear against a tank, in the VIP box. Valk leaned forward, grinning. Let's see if your glitch can survive this, he murmured. He pressed a button on his console. Down in the sand, invisible waves of energy pulsed from the hidden emitters in the walls. They hit Mira. It wasn't pain. It was panic. The neural lattice in Mira's head, the Reaper protocol, reacted to the signal. It was a command code designed to strip away higher brain function and replace it with blind animal terror. Mira stumbled. She dropped the spear. Her hands flew to her head. The world tilted, her vision blurred, overlaid with red static. Screams that weren't hers echoed in her skull. Run, hide, die, obey. The voice was loud, drowning out her own thoughts. It was trying to erase her. Mira fell to her knees, clutching her temples. The warwalker took a step forward, the ground shaking. The crowd went silent, sensing the end. No! Mira gasped, gritting her teeth. You are nothing. You are a program. Mira laughed. It was a wheezing, broken sound, but it was hers. I am not your program, she shouted at the sand. She forced her head up. She looked at the warwalker. It raised its gravity hammer. I am Mira Hale, she yelled, her voice cracking. And I have had worse headaches than this from cheap whiskey. She scrambled sideways just as the hammer slammed down, shattering the obsidian wall where she had been kneeling. The impact threw her across the arena, but she was moving. She was fighting the panic with the only weapon she had left, stubbornness. And then, it happened. As the adrenaline spiked and her will clashed with the protocol, the tattoo on her neck flared. It didn't just stay black, it glowed. A line of blue light traced the letters REAPER. In the VIP box, Valk saw it on the monitor. He froze, then slowly, a smile spread across his face. a terrible, hungry smile. "She is active," Valk whispered. "The key is awake." He looked like a man who had just found the detonator to a nuclear bomb. Rook was not in the shuttle. He was in the maintenance sublayer, huddled under a console, his fingers flying across a stolen data pad. He saw the signal spike from Mira. "She is glowing," Rook muttered. "Come on, Mira, hold on." He hit the execute command for the broadcast. "Uploading. Project Reaper files. NC status. Access denied. Error. Royal cipher blockade in effect." Rook cursed. "It's jammed! Saren, it is jammed!" In the VIP box. Saren heard him through her earpiece. She saw Mira down in the pit, rolling away from the Warwalker's gunfire. She saw Valk reaching for the main control panel, ready to escalate the torture. She looked at her mother's message, still floating in her peripheral vision. "Come home." Saren closed the message. She stood up. Valk looked at her. "Sit down, Saren. Do not spoil the view." Saren ignored him. She reached up and tapped the crest on her chest plate, the royal seal of House Kale. It was more than a decoration. It was a high-frequency transmitter, linked directly to the Dominion's emergency broadcast network. It was designed for regents and their heirs to command fleets, or to override local systems. Saren Kale, commander of the Royal Guard, first daughter of the Blood. Saren spoke, her voice clear and loud. Valk realized what she was doing. His eyes went wide. "Stop her!" he screamed at his guards. Saren didn't flinch. Authorization code, Truthbreaker. Override all local jamming, Priority Alpha. The crest pulsed with a blinding white light. For 6 seconds, the arena of suns belonged to her. The royal cipher dissolved. The jammer crashed. Rook's upload punched through. Every screen in the arena, the massive jumbotrons, the personal data pads of the senators, the betting terminals flickered and changed. The image of Mira fighting the tank vanished. In its place, documents appeared. Contract 88 Delta. Subject, mass mind control trials. Target Dominion infantry and civilian centers. Authorized by Regent Kale. Then the video played, the video of the torture, the video of the scientists explaining how they would turn people into meat puppets. The video of Saren's mother signing the death warrant of freedom. The roar of the crowd stopped. It was as if the air had been sucked out of the moon. 80,000 people read the truth at the same time. Then the noise returned, but it was not the noise of a game. It was the noise of a riot. In the stands, a fight broke out. Then another. People were standing up, pointing at the VIP box, screaming. Debris began to rain down onto the field. Valk stared at the screens, his face pale. He turned to Saren, his eyes full of murder. "You foolish girl," he hissed. "You have burned the house down to kill a spider." Saren drew her blade. The violet energy hummed. The spider was eating the world. "Valk," she said. Valk slammed his fist onto a large red button on his console. "If you want chaos," he screamed, "I will give you extinction." The Reaper protocol engaged. It wasn't just a panic signal this time. It was the full override in the arena. Mira screamed. Her back arched as the lattice seized control of her motor functions. The glow on her neck turned from blue to an angry, pulsing red. She felt her hands moving without her permission. She felt her legs lock. She was no longer driving the car, she was locked in the trunk. The protocol had a target, the arena core. If Mira touched the central power coupling in the middle of the labyrinth, her biometric key would overload the reactor. The arena would not just lose gravity, it would detonate. The blast would kill everyone, prisoners, senators, witnesses, and the Dominion would blame the human terrorist who blew herself up. Mira began to walk toward the center of the arena, Her movements were jerky, robotic. "I can't stop," she gasped, tears streaming down her face. The Warwalker stopped firing. It backed away, following new orders to let the bomb walk to the target. Saren saw it. Rook saw it. "She is being used as a remote," Saren shouted. Valk initiated the wipe. Saren fought off two guards who lunged at her, kicking one over the railing and slashing the rifle of the other. She tapped her comms. "Mira, listen to me, I can't!" Mira cried out. "It's pulling me. You are more than what they built into you," Saren yelled, her voice cutting through the static in Mira's head. "They put a machine in you, but you are the pilot. Choice is a muscle. Mira, use it." Mira continued to walk. She was 50 yards from the core. Rook didn't wait. He didn't check the odds. He sprinted from the maintenance tunnel, vaulting the barrier onto the sand. He had no weapon. He had a wrench and a terrifying amount of love. He ran toward Mira. The Warwalker swiveled its guns toward him. "Rook!" Saren screamed. Rook didn't stop. He slid under the Warwalker's legs as the cannon fire churned the sand behind him. He scrambled up the obsidian slope and tackled Mira. The impact knocked them both to the ground. Rook pinned her down, holding her arms. Mira was thrashing. Her eyes rolled back, the red light of the tattoo blinding. "Let me go!" The mechanical voice of the protocol screamed through her lips. "Target acquired! Mira!" Rook shouted, grabbing her face. "Look at me!" He slapped her cheek, not hard, but enough to shock. "My name is Rook. You are Mira Hale. You hate synthetic food and you make terrible jokes when you are scared. Breathe." Mira's eyes fluttered. The red light flickered. "Rook," she whispered. "You are here," Rook said, pressing his forehead to hers, grounding her in the present moment. "You are right here. Do not let them turn you into a weapon. You are the only person who owns your death." The Warwalker was turning. The barrel was glowing, charging for a shot that would vaporize them both. Mira looked at Rook. She saw the fear in his eyes, but also the absolute trust. Choice is a muscle, she thought. She didn't try to stop the energy surging through her. She didn't try to block the protocol. She grabbed it. She felt the command, "Detonate," and she twisted it. She grabbed the invisible threads of the lattice that connected her to the arena's systems. She felt the gravity plates, the sun cannon, the containment fields. "No," Mira whispered. "Not detonate. Release." She screamed, her body arching off the sand. The tattoo blazed white. She slammed her hand into the sand, channeling the overload not into the reactor but into the control locks. The sound was not an explosion. It was the sound of a million chains snapping at once. The gravity in the arena failed. Instantly, the sand rose. The rocks rose. The Warwalker lifted off the ground, its legs flailing uselessly in the air. Rook and Mira floated upward, weightless. All around the arena, the force fields holding the prisoner cells failed. The doors popped open. Thousands of prisoners floated out of their cages, drifting into the open air of the moon like a swarm of angry meteors. In the VIP box, Valk gripped his console as his wine glass floated past his face. "What did she do?" he screamed. Saren floated a few inches off the floor, gripping the railing. She looked at the chaos, the beautiful, liberated chaos. She looked at Valk. She chose, Saren said. Valk pulled a pistol from his robes. He aimed it at Saren. "You don't get to choose what Reaper means," he shrieked, his composure shattering. Saren kicked off the wall, diving toward him as the zero-gravity turned the box into a three-dimensional battlefield. The gravity collapse in the arena had turned the world upside down, but the undercity of Varan was a place that had never known which way was up. Saren, Rook, and Mira fell through the maintenance chutes, crashing into the subterranean sprawl like debris jettisoned from a dying star. They landed in a knee-deep slurry of tepid water and industrial runoff. The air here was thick, tasting of copper and unwashed bodies. This was the digestive tract of the moon, the place where the waste of the glamorous surface filtered down to rot. Saren stood up, wiping slime from her pristine ceremonial armor. The bioluminescent fiber of her gown was shredded, hanging in tatters around the combat suit beneath. She looked out at the tunnel. It was lit by flickering chemical lamps and phosphorescent moss. On the wall, sprayed in luminous, angry paint, were words that stopped her cold. The throne lies. It was not a new tag. It was old, faded, layered over with fresh, jagged lines. They have known, Saren whispered. The people down here. They have always known. Rook was already moving, checking the seals on his oxygen rebreather. They don't have the luxury of believing the lie. Princess, hunger clarifies the vision. We need to move. Valk's drones will be sweeping the upper drainage within 10 minutes. Mira was shivering, clutching her arms. The aftershocks of the Reaper protocol were still firing through her nerves, making her twitch. I feel like I drank a battery, Mira muttered. A battery made of hate. Rook steadied her. Can you run? Mira looked at the graffiti. She spat into the water. Watch me. They ran. The Undercity was a labyrinth of flooded tunnels and illegal markets built into the rusted skeletons of ancient colony ships. They ducked through stalls selling black market organs and repurposed military tech. The citizens of the deep, aliens with too many eyes and humans with too few teeth, watched them pass with a mixture of apathy and suspicion. They did not intervene. In the dark, you did not ask questions about a woman in royal armor fleeing with a mechanic and a walking weapon. They reached the smuggler docks, a jagged cavern opening out into the void of space, shielded by a flickering atmospheric curtain. Ships of all shapes and questionable legality were docked there, held together by duct tape and prayers. That one. Rook pointed. It was a light freighter, scarred and ugly, shaped like a brick with engines. It looks like a coffin, Saren said. It is a coffin with a hyperdrive, Rook corrected. And the lock mechanism is a standard Jingtao model. I can bypass it in 30 seconds. He was wrong. He bypassed it in 20. They scrambled aboard just as the shriek of engines echoed from the tunnel behind them. 3 arena drones, sleek, predatory machines designed for air-to-ground slaughter, burst into the cavern. Their sensors swept the dock, bathing the rusted ships in red kill light. "Get us out of here!" Mira yelled, strapping herself into the co-pilot seat. Rook punched the ignition. The ship groaned, shuddered, and then roared to life. He slammed the throttle forward. The vessel shot through the atmospheric curtain and out into the ring debris of Varan. The drones pursued, snapping like metal insects. The chase was a chaotic blur of motion. Rook flew the brick-like ship with the grace of a dancer, weaving through the floating carcasses of destroyed satellites and chunks of moon rock. Laser fire scorched the hull, shaking the cabin violently. "Shields are at 40%, Saren shouted from the engineering station. "I need a gap," Rook yelled, his hands flying across the controls. "There," Mira pointed. A massive section of a derelict mining station was drifting ahead, a rotating ring of twisted steel. "I can't fit through that," Rook said. "You can if you tip us," Mira said. Her eyes were wide, her pupils dilated. "The lattice, it is calculating the trajectory. I can see the math. Rook, do it!" Rook didn't argue. He banked the ship hard, flipping it 90 degrees. They shot through the gap in the station wreckage with inches to spare. The drones, following on automated kill paths, were not so lucky. 2 of them slammed into the steel ring, detonating in silent blossoms of orange fire. The third clipped a strut and spun away into the dark. Rook leveled the ship, punching the hyperdrive coordinates. The stars elongated into streaks of white light. Silence reclaimed the cockpit. "We are clear," Rook breathed, slumping back in his seat. The quiet of hyperspace was heavy. It was a vacuum that sucked the adrenaline out of the room, leaving only the grim reality of their situation. Saren sat in the small mess hall, staring at a data pad she had salvaged from the ship's comms array. Her face was pale. "What is it?" Rook asked, handing her a pouch of water. Saren turned the screen toward him. It was a Dominion news feed. Her face was plastered across the galaxy, but the image was manipulated. It showed her standing over the bodies of the arena guards, her sword dripping, her expression twisted into a snarl. The headline read, "Traitor Princess Orchestrates Massacre. They are saying I led a terrorist cell," Saren said, her voice hollow. "They are saying I sabotaged the arena to kill the senators and destabilize the region." "And the truth?" Mira asked from the doorway. "The files we leaked? Suppressed," Saren said. "They are calling it a deep fake, enemy propaganda." She swiped the screen. A new video played. It was the Regent, Saren's mother. She stood on the balcony of the Golden Throne, dressed in mourning black. She looked devastated. She looked perfect. "My daughter has been seduced by radical elements." The Regent spoke, her voice breaking with practiced sorrow. "She has betrayed her blood and her people. To restore order, I am authorizing emergency powers. The outlying systems will be placed under martial law until these terrorists are hunted down." Saren turned the pad off. "She is using it," Saren whispered. "She is using my betrayal to justify the extermination campaigns. She planned this. If I died, I was a martyr. If I lived, I am a villain. Either way, she gets her war." Rook sat down across from her. He didn't offer empty platitudes. He reached across the table and took her hand. "She is good," Rook said. "She is a monster," Saren replied, "and I am her daughter. How much of her is in me? Rook, how long before I start justifying cruelty as necessity?" Rook looked at her. He squeezed her hand, his calloused thumb brushing her knuckles. "You are not her. Saren." "I don't know who I am," she confessed. "Without the armor, without the rank, without the duty. I have been a weapon for the throne since I could walk. If you take that away, what is left?" Rook leaned in. His eyes were dark and tired, but burning with a fierce, steady heat. "A woman who saved a salvage pilot because it was the right thing to do," Rook said. "A woman who risked treason to save a grease monkey. A woman who is messy and furious and real." Saren looked at him. The desire that flared between them wasn't the frantic heat of the armory. It was deeper. It was a refuge. It was the knowledge that in a galaxy that wanted them dead, they were the only safe harbor for each other. "I want that woman," Rook said softly. "I don't care about the princess. I want Saren." Saren let out a breath she felt she had been holding for 20 years. She leaned her forehead against his. "You are going to get us killed, mechanic," she murmured. But there was a smile ghosting her lips. A throat cleared loudly from the hallway. Mira stood there, leaning against the bulkhead, eating a nutrient bar she had found. "I am nauseous enough from the hyperdrive," Mira said. "I really do not need to see your highness and her emotional support human making eyes at each other." Saren pulled back, blushing, but the tension in her shoulders broke. "You are jealous," Rook shot back. "I am traumatized," Mira corrected. "But seriously, keep it up. It makes me feel like we might actually survive this. If you two can find time to flirt while being the most wanted people in the universe, then maybe we have a chance." "Where are we going?" Saren asked, forcing herself back to business. The coordinates from the file we stole, Mira said. The origin point of the Reaper protocol. Rook checked the nav computer. It is a moon in the outer rim, designated Archive 9. Let's go see where the ghosts live, Saren said. Archive 9 was a graveyard of giants. It was not a Dominion world. It was an ancient structure, a moon-sized artificial sphere built by a species that had vanished 1,000,000 years ago. The Dominion had repurposed the ruins, building a sleek, sterile laboratory into the craggy obsidian surface of the alien architecture. They landed the ship on a landing pad overgrown with crystalline vines. As they disembarked, the strangeness of the place hit them immediately. The light here was wrong. It didn't travel in straight lines. It curved around the ancient pillars, creating pools of shadow where there should be sun, and beams of light that seemed to come from nowhere. Rook stumbled as he walked down the ramp. Whoa. What is it? Saren asked, her hand on her sword. My feet, Rook said. I can hear my footsteps before I take them. Saren listened. He was right. The crunch of boots on gravel echoed a split second before the boot hit the ground. Time distortion, Mira said. Her voice sounded doubled, like a choir of one. The lattice in my head, it likes this place. It feels quiet. They moved toward the laboratory entrance. The massive blast doors had been blown open years ago, leaving a gaping maw into the dark. Inside, the facility was a mix of high-tech Dominion glass and ancient grooved stone. Dust motes danced in the bending light. They found the central server room deep within the structure. It was untouched, preserved by the vacuum in the strange temporal field. Rook jacked the data pad into the terminal. The system woke up, groaning with old data. I am accessing the original project logs, Rook said, dated 80 years ago. A hologram flickered to life. It showed a Dominion scientist, young and idealistic, standing next to a tall, slender alien, one of the species that had built the arena tech. Project Reaper is a success, the scientist said. The protocol is stable, but the High Command is misunderstanding the purpose. They think we are building a soldier. The alien spoke, its voice melodious and vibrating. The Reaper is not a sword, it is a shield. It is a biological failsafe designed to sever the chain of command if the leadership becomes corrupt. It allows the soldier to say, no. Saren stared at the hologram. It was not a mind control device, not originally. It was the opposite. It was an anti-tyrant protocol, a way to ensure that an army could not be used to commit atrocities. They weaponized it, Saren whispered. The Regent took a tool meant to prevent tyranny and inverted it to enforce it. Rook scrolled further. There is more. The human test subjects, they weren't random abductions. They needed a specific genetic marker to interface with the ancient tech, a lineage that was compatible with the alien biosyntax. He pulled up a DNA profile. It matched Mira. The scientist in the hologram spoke again. The human liaison, Captain Hale, has volunteered her own genetic material to anchor the key. She believes that her descendants should be the guardians of the gate. Mira stared at the image of Captain Hale. The woman had the same sharp jawline, the same defiant eyes. She is my great-grandmother, Mira said, stunned. I am not just a random salvage pilot. I am the failsafe. That is why the lattice responds to you, Saren said. You are the key by blood. You are the only one who can lock or unlock the system. Rook found one last file. It was a recording dated 2 weeks ago. It was the Regent. The trials are concluding, Saren's mother said to an unseen general. Once the girl detonates the arena, we will use the fear to implement the Reaper protocol across the entire frontier fleet. But we must alter the core command. Remove the choice architecture Leave only obedience. I want an army that cannot blink." "There it is," Rook said grimly. "The smoking gun. We have to broadcast this," Saren said. "Not just the file, but the origin. If the soldiers know that Reaper was meant to set them free, they will fight the implant." Rook began the upload sequence. The temporal distortion made the connection slow. The progress bar crawled. 10%, Rook said. A boom echoed through the facility, not a time echo. An explosion. Outside, Saren spun around. Valk found us. They ran back toward the hangar, but the corridor was blocked. A squad of elite kill team soldiers stood in the bending light, their armor matte black, and behind them walked Valk Orun. He looked ragged, his fine robe scorched, his eyes manic. "You lead a merry chase. Commander," Valk shouted. His voice arrived a second before his lips moved, creating a disorienting, nightmarish effect. "Kill the mechanic," Valk ordered. "Kill the traitor. But leave the girl legs to walk. I need her brain intact." The soldiers opened fire. The battle that followed was fought in a kaleidoscope of broken physics. Saren moved. In the time-distorted air, she was a blur. She activated her blade, deflecting plasma bolts that seemed to curve in the air. She lunged at the lead soldier. He tried to block, but Saren struck where he was going to be, not where he was. The distortion worked in her favor. She was fighting 4 seconds in the future. Rook didn't have a sword. He had the environment. He shot a steam pipe next to the soldiers. The steam exploded outward, but instead of dissipating, it hung in the air like a solid wall for 3 seconds before expanding. The soldiers were blinded. Rook tossed a gravity grenade he had stolen from the arena. It detonated, pinning 2 soldiers to the ceiling. Mira stood in the center of the storm. She didn't have a weapon, but she had the facility. The ancient alien stone resonated with the tattoo on her neck. "Open," Mira commanded. A heavy stone door slammed shut between Rook and a flanking soldier, crushing the soldier's rifle. "Close," she yelled. A blast shield dropped from the ceiling, shielding Saren from a sniper shot. "I can feel the building," Mira shouted. "It wants to help," Valk screamed in frustration. He drew a jagged, energy-crackling whip and charged Saren. Saren met him. Their duel was a dance of violent light. Valk was fast, fueled by rage, but Saren was disciplined. She parried his whip, the energy crackling against her blade. "You are nothing without your mother," Valk taunted. "A doll in a dress." Saren ducked under his strike, slashing his leg. "I am the one who cut the strings," she replied. Rook was pinned down behind a pillar. The upload on his datapad was at 80%. "Cover me!" Rook yelled. Saren disengaged from Valk, sliding across the floor to shield Rook. She took a plasma bolt to the shoulder pauldron. It burned through the armor, searing her skin. She grunted but didn't fall. "Go!" Saren shouted. "Get the signal out!" Valk's soldiers were regrouping. They were overwhelmed. Saren looked at the hangar door. It was 50 yards away. They wouldn't make it. Not all of them. She looked at Rook. She looked at Mira. "Take the ship," Saren said, her voice calm amidst the chaos. "What?" Rook looked up. "I will hold them here," Saren said. "I can buy you 5 minutes. Finish the upload from orbit." "No," Rook said. Saren grabbed him. "It is the only way. Rook, the truth matters more than I do. Go!" She turned to charge Valk, a suicide run to draw their fire. Rook didn't let go. He grabbed her good arm and yanked her back behind the pillar. His face was furious, terrifyingly intense. "No!" he shouted over the roar of gunfire. "I am not leaving you behind. Rook, please, if I lose you, freedom is just another empty room." Rook yelled. "I don't want a galaxy where you are a statue in a park. I want you." Saren froze. The words hit her harder than the plasma bolt. "Then what do we do?" she asked, tears stinging her eyes. We cheat, Rook said. Mira looked over. Can you connect to their suits? Rook asked. The soldiers, they are using Dominion comms. Can the Reaper lattice touch them? Mira looked at the kill team. She saw the tech woven into their helmets. I can try, she said. Do it, Saren said. Kill them. Mira reached out with her mind. She felt the soldiers. She felt their aggression, their orders, the fear buried deep under their conditioning. She raised her hand. The tattoo burned white hot. She could kill them. She could stop their hearts. It would be easy. It would be safe. But then she remembered the voice. Reaper is choice. If she killed them, she was just another Valk. Just another regent. No, Mira whispered. She didn't reach for their hearts. She reached for their eyes. She reached for the command centers in their helmets that pumped adrenaline and obedience drugs into their veins. Sleep, Mira commanded. She didn't kill them. She severed the strings. She cut the connection between their suits and their nervous systems. The soldiers didn't die. They simply stopped. The aggression drained out of them. They lowered their weapons, looking around in confusion like men waking up from a sleepwalking nightmare. Valk stared at his squad. Shoot, he screamed. Shoot them. The soldiers looked at Valk. They looked at their guns, and they didn't fire. What did you do? Valk whispered, looking at Mira. I gave them a choice, Mira said, panting, blood running from her nose. Saren didn't waste the moment. She grabbed Rook and Mira. Run! They sprinted for the ship. Valk fired wildly at them, but he was alone now. His shots went wide in the distortion field. They scrambled up the ramp. Rook slammed the airlock shut and punched the ignition. The ship blasted out of the hangar, leaving Valk screaming in the dust of the archive. Orbit. Safe. Rook checked the data pad. Upload complete. The truth was out. The origin of Reaper, the Regent's treachery, Mira's mercy. They sat in the cockpit, battered, bleeding, and exhausted. We did it, Mira said softly. Saren looked out the viewport. Not yet, she said. Sensors were lighting up. Space was warping around the moon. A fleet was dropping out of hyperspace. Hundreds of warships. The Royal Armada. And at the head of the formation was the Sovereign, the Regent's flagship, a dreadnought the size of a city. My mother is here, Saren said. She stood up, smoothing her ruined armor. She looked at Rook. She looked at Mira. She didn't look afraid anymore. The data is out, Saren said, but data is cold. People need a story. She activated the ship's comms, broadcasting on an open channel to the massive fleet bearing down on them. This isn't a battle for survival anymore, Saren said, her voice steady. It is a battle for the story the galaxy believes, and I am done letting her write it. The Royal Armada hung in orbit around Varen like a belt of iron, a blockade so dense it blotted out the stars. But a blockade was designed to keep ships from leaving, not to stop a suicidal plunge into the heart of the fire. Rook flew the stolen smuggler's freighter not like a pilot, but like a man throwing a brick through a window. They punched through the atmospheric debris, riding the wake of a crashing cruiser, and slammed down onto the landing pad of the arena's broadcast core. The core was a spire of black metal that pierced the sky, the throat through which the Dominion screamed its propaganda to the galaxy. It was the loudest mouth in the universe, and they were here to make it speak the truth. Saren Kale stood by the airlock, checking the charge on her depleted energy blade. Her armor was scorched, her face smeared with soot, but her eyes were clear. There was a grim calm about her, the stillness of a woman who had run out of places to retreat. We are not hiding anymore, Saren said, her voice cutting through the hum of the cooling engines. We go up. We take the control room. We hijacked Chime and the satellite array. Mira stood next to her, rubbing the tattoo on her neck. It was throbbing, a dull ache that synchronized with the pulsing lights of the spire. "And then we broadcast the files?" Mira asked. "Everything," Saren said. "The signatures, the lab footage from the archive, the origin of the Reaper protocol. We show the soldiers that they are not fighting for glory. We show them they are fighting to be enslaved." Rook racked the slide on a heavy pulse rifle he had scavenged. "And then the Regent turns the sky into a laser show," Rook said grimly. "She will try," Saren said. "But once the truth is out, the story changes. She can kill us, but she cannot kill the signal." A chime sounded from the ship's console. It was a priority override code. The frequency was royal. Saren walked to the comm station. She didn't hesitate. She opened the channel. The holographic emitter flickered, resolving into the image of Regent Kale. She sat on the golden throne, her posture impeccable, her face a mask of disappointed divinity. "Mother," Saren said. "Saren," the Regent replied. Her voice was not angry. It was terrifyingly reasonable. "You are causing a great deal of noise. It is unbecoming." "I am ending the silence," Saren said. "I know about the protocol. I know you planned the coup. I know you intend to turn the frontier armies into mindless drones." The Regent sighed, a sound like rustling silk. "You use such emotional words. Mindless drones. I prefer the term stabilized. Look at the galaxy. Saren, look at the chaos you have unleashed in just 2 days. Worlds are rioting. Trade routes are burning. People are dying because you broke the order. People are dying because you built a cage and called it a home." Saren snapped. "Cruelty is the price of stability." The Regent's voice hardened, losing its maternal veneer. "Compassion is a luxury for children and poets. Rulers do not have the privilege of being kind. We have the duty to be strong. Come home. Saren, surrender the girl. We can still salvage your legacy." Saren looked at the woman who had raised her. She saw the resemblance in the jaw, the eyes, but she felt nothing but a vast, cold distance. "I do not want your legacy," Saren said quietly. "You think leadership is ownership. You think you own these people because you sit on a chair of gold. But leadership is service, and you have served no one but yourself. You are throwing away your birthright," the Regent warned. "I am earning my name." Saren replied. She cut the feed. The hologram dissolved into static. Saren stared at the blank space where her mother had been. Her hands were shaking, just slightly. Rook stepped up beside her. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, a solid wall of presence against the void. "We have 10 minutes before they breach the lower blast doors," Rook said. Saren turned to him. The airlock hissed open, revealing the smoke-filled corridor of the spire. Rook caught her arm as she moved to leave. "Wait," he said. Saren stopped. She looked up at him. They were both covered in the grime of a war they hadn't started, standing on the precipice of an assault that was likely a one-way trip. Rook looked at her, his eyes wet, his defenses stripped away. The sarcasm, the deflection, the pilot's swagger. It was all gone. There was only the man. "I am not going to promise we make it out of this," Rook said, his voice rough. "I am not going to lie to you." "Good," Saren whispered. "I am tired of lies." Rook gripped her hand, his fingers lacing through hers. The contact was electric, threaded with grief and a desire so sharp it hurt. "But I want you to know," Rook continued, squeezing her hand until his knuckles turned white. "I am glad it was you. If I had to be dragged into hell, I am glad it was you holding the map." Saren felt a tear track through the soot on her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. It is not hell. Rook, she said softly. Not if we are standing together. She leaned in, pressing her forehead against his chest. For a second, the roar of the blockade and the scream of the sirens faded. There was only the beat of his heart against her ear. We promise nothing, Saren whispered, pulling back to look him in the eye. Except honesty. Honesty, Rook agreed. He let her go, raising his rifle. Now let's go break their furniture. The ascent up the broadcast core was a nightmare of physics. The riots had damaged the spire's internal systems. The gravity stabilizers were fluctuating wildly. One moment they were running up a staircase, the next, the gravity inverted, and the staircase became a ceiling they had to hang from. Traps activated as they climbed. Neural feedback emitters shrieked in their minds, broadcasting waves of nausea and phantom pain. Mira grit her teeth, her hands pressed over her ears. "Shut it off," she screamed. "I am trying," Rook yelled, hacking the door panel while hanging upside down from a railing. "The code is cycling too fast." Saren deflected a stun bolt from an automated turret with her blade. "Mira," Saren shouted, "talk to the building." Mira lowered her hands. She closed her eyes. She felt the pulse of the spire, the data streams running through the walls like veins. "Stop screaming," she commanded the walls. The neural shriek cut off instantly, replaced by the smooth, terrifyingly cheerful voice of the station AI. "Welcome to the broadcast core," Chime announced. "Please note that unauthorized entry is punishable by immediate disintegration. Have a stellar day." Mira patches her datapad into the nearest terminal. "I am sick of this voice," Mira muttered. She typed furiously. "Override audio protocols," she said, patching into the PA system. A second later, Chime's voice glitched. "Tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Crackle. Consequences." Mira laughed. It was a sharp, jagged sound, but for the first time since the arena, it wasn't fear, it was power. "Nice touch." Rook grinned, hauling himself through the blast door. "We are at the summit," Saren said, pointing up the shaft. "The central transmitter is through those doors." The doors were massive, emblazoned with the crest of the Dominion. They were already open, waiting for them. The central control room was a sphere of glass looking out over the burning city of Varan. In the center stood the transmitter console, a pillar of light that connected the moon to the rest of the galaxy. And standing in front of it was Valk Oren. He was not alone. He was flanked by a dozen elite Praetorian guards, their armor gleaming. But Valk didn't look like a cornered man. He looked like a king in waiting. "You are late," Valk said, checking a pocket watch that he had pulled from his ruined robes. "The broadcast window is opening in 2 minutes." Saren stepped into the room, her blade humming. "Step away from the console. Valk, it is over." Valk smiled. It was a beatific, delusional smile. "Over? My dear Saren, we are just getting to the wedding scene." He walked toward her, ignoring the guards who raised their weapons. "You think I serve your mother?" Valk asked, his voice echoing in the glass chamber. "The Regent is a fossil. She lacks imagination. She wants a silent army. I want a devoted one." He gestured to the console. "Join me. Saren, we can rule together. You have the bloodline, I have the vision. And with the Reaper Girl, we have the enforcement. We can bring order to the galaxy. Not the Regent's cold silence, but a beautiful, adored order. We can be the saviors they pray to." He held out his hand. "It is destiny. Saren, inevitability. We are the perfect couple. Power and beauty." Saren looked at his hand. She looked at his face, twisted by a narcissism so deep it had consumed his reality. You talk about love like it is a transaction, Saren said, her voice cold and clear. You talk about destiny like it is a script you wrote. She raised her sword, pointing the tip at his throat. Wanting someone does not give you the right to own them, Valk. Desire without consent is not destiny, it is tyranny, and I am done with tyrants. Valk's face fell, the delusion shattered, leaving only a raw, ugly rage. Then burn, he whispered. Kill them, Valk screamed. The room exploded into violence. The Praetorian guards opened fire. Rook dove behind a console, providing covering fire with his pulse rifle. Mira scrambled toward the transmitter, dodging plasma bolts. Saren charged. She moved like liquid mercury, her blade deflecting shots, cutting through armor. She wasn't fighting for the throne anymore. She was fighting for the space between breaths, for the right to choose her own end. Valk drew his energy whip and met her in the center of the room. The crack of the whip against her sword sounded like thunder. Mira reached the console. She slammed her hand onto the interface panel. I need time, she yelled. The encryption is heavy. Rook popped up, firing 2 precise shots that dropped a guard advancing on Mira. You have 30 seconds, Rook shouted. Valk lashed out, the whip wrapping around Saren's ankle. He yanked her off her feet. She hit the deck hard, her sword sliding away. Valk loomed over her, drawing a pistol. If I cannot have you, no one will. Valk snarled. He aimed at her chest. Saren braced herself for the impact, but it didn't come. A shadow threw itself between them. Rook. The plasma bolt hit Rook in the chest. It didn't burn through his heavy vest entirely, but the impact was like a sledgehammer. Rook flew backward, crashing into the glass wall. No, Saren screamed. The sound tore out of her throat, primal and terrified. She didn't reach for her sword. She rolled, grabbing a discarded guard's pistol, and fired 3 shots into Valk's shoulder and knee. Valk collapsed, howling. Saren scrambled over to Rook. He was slumped against the glass, gasping for air, blood bubbling at the corner of his mouth. Rook, Saren cried, her hands hovering over his chest, afraid to touch the wound. Stay with me. Rook looked up at her. His eyes were unfocused, but he smiled, a crooked, bloody smile. I didn't kneel, he wheezed. Saren's composure broke. The commander vanished. The princess vanished. There was only Saren weeping over the man who had taught her that she was real. You idiot, she sobbed, cradling his face. You beautiful idiot. You can't leave me. You are the first person who saw me. I am. Still looking, Rook whispered. Mira turned from the console. She saw Rook down. She saw Saren broken. She saw the guards regrouping for a final execution volley. Something inside Mira snapped, or perhaps it healed. She looked at the tattoo on her reflection in the console screen. Reaper, she whispered. She didn't fight the lattice this time. She didn't treat it like an invader. She welcomed it. She opened the door wide. If I am the key, she thought, then I am unlocking everything. She stepped away from the console. She walked into the center of the room, between the guards and her friends. Stop, Mira said. It wasn't a shout. It was a command spoken with the weight of a planet. She activated Reaper True mode. Her neck didn't just glow, her entire body lit up with a blinding, translucent white energy. The microfilaments under her skin flared. She sent a signal. Not to the console, not to the drones, to the soldiers, to every neural implant within range of the spire. Break, Mira screamed. It wasn't a kill command. It was a severance. She poured every ounce of her will into the signal, burning her own nerves to ash to push the command through. She found the chains that bound the soldiers' minds to the high command, and she shattered them. The effect was instantaneous. The Praetorian guards froze. Their fingers loosened on their triggers. The red light in their visors flickered and died, replaced by the natural color of their optics. One guard dropped his rifle. He fell to his knees, ripping his helmet off. He looked at his hands, then at Saren, confusion and horror washing over his face. What am I doing?" the guard whispered. Across the complex, across the city, thousands of soldiers stopped. They woke up from the dream of obedience. Some collapsed crying, some threw down their weapons. The army of the Dominion ceased to exist, replaced by a million confused, terrified individuals. Valk, clutching his bleeding shoulder, looked around in horror. "My army!" he screamed. "You broke my army! I gave them back to themselves!" Mira gasped, dropping to her knees, the light fading from her skin. Saren looked up. She saw the guard standing down. She saw the path to the console was open. She kissed Rook's forehead. "Do not die," she ordered him. "That is a command." She stood up. She walked to the transmitter. She didn't look at Valk. She stepped over him like he was debris. She placed her hand on the panel. "This is Saren Kale," she said into the microphone. Her voice was broadcast to every screen, every ship, every data pad in the Dominion. "And this is the truth." She hit upload. The files streamed out. The contracts, the video of the Regent, the history of the Reaper, the lie of the war. For a moment, the galaxy held its breath. Then, the sky began to fall. The orbital bombardment alarm screamed. Regent Kale had seen enough. If she could not control the narrative, she would erase the page. The Sovereign opened fire. Massive kinetic rods and plasma lances rained down from orbit, targeting the arena and the spire. The sky turned into a falling blade of fire. "We are dead," a guard whispered, looking up through the glass ceiling. "No," Mira whispered. She dragged herself back to the console. She was weak, her body trembling from the true mode discharge, but she wasn't done. The arena shield. She gasped. "It is connected to the core." She hacked into the defense grid. The shield was designed to cover the VIP box. It wasn't big enough to cover the city, unless she overloaded it. "Mira, no!" Rook wheezed, trying to sit up. "It will burn you out." Mira looked at them. She looked at Saren, standing tall. She looked at Rook, fighting to stay conscious. She looked at the civilians in the streets below, looking up at their doom. "Reaper is choice," Mira said. She grabbed the power relays. She didn't redirect the energy to the weapon systems. She poured the entire output of the broadcast core and her own bioenergy into the atmospheric shield. A dome of shimmering blue light erupted over the spire and the surrounding city blocks. The orbital fire hammered against it. The noise was deafening, a continuous thunder that shook the teeth in their skulls. The console sparked. Mira's skin began to blister. She screamed, her back arching, becoming the conduit for a city's worth of energy. She held the sky up. "Get them out," Mira screamed to the guards. "Get them to the ship." The guards, no longer drones, obeyed. Two of them grabbed Rook. Saren grabbed Mira, pulling her hands from the console. "The shield will hold for 1 minute." Saren yelled. "Move!" They ran. Valk tried to stand. He clawed at the console, trying to stop the broadcast, trying to save his empire. "Wait!" Valk screamed at the retreating group. "Take me with you. I am the master of the arena." Saren didn't look back. The ceiling began to collapse. Valk looked up at the cameras mounted in the corners of the room. They were still rolling. "Look at me!" he screamed at the lenses. "I am Valk Oren. I am the king." A chunk of the roof the size of a tank slammed down. Valk's scream was cut short. He died not as a martyr, but as a footnote, consumed by the falling masonry of the system he worshipped. They made it to the ship. Saren threw herself into the pilot's seat. Rook was in the med bay, the auto dock stabilizing him. Mira was slumped in the co-pilot chair, unconscious but breathing. Saren punched the throttle. The ship shot out of the hangar bay just as the spire collapsed. The shield failed a second later, but the kinetic rod slammed into the ruin of the tower. Not the city. Saren wove through the falling debris, pushing the engines to the red line. She broke the atmosphere. She broke the blockade line, slipping past the confused and rioting Dominion fleet. She punched the hyperdrive. The stars streaked. Varen vanished. Saren slumped over the controls and wept. The aftermath was not clean. Revolutions never are. The Dominion fractured. The broadcast had done its work. Dozens of systems declared independence within the week. The Regent's fleet was plagued by mutinies as soldiers discovered the truth about their implants. The Regent barricaded herself in the core worlds, ruling over a shrinking, paranoid kingdom. The rebels contacted Saren. They offered her a fleet. They offered her a crown. They called her the Liberator. She refused. I will not build a new throne on the ashes of the old one. She told them, figure out how to rule yourselves. That is the hard part. 3 weeks later, the ship was docked on a quiet, unregistered agri-world on the edge of the fringe. Saren sat on the cargo ramp, watching the sun set over a field of golden grain. She wore simple mechanics coveralls. Her armor was packed away in a crate in the hold. Rook walked down the ramp. He was moving stiffly, his chest bandaged, but he was walking. He sat down next to her. Nice sunset, he said. It is quiet, Saren replied. I am not used to quiet. You will get used to it, Rook said. He reached out and took her hand. Saren looked at him. The desire was still there, but it had softened. It wasn't the frantic need of people about to die. It was steadier. It was the warm, solid weight of a chosen love, not a conquest, a partnership. I heard Mira is awake, Saren said. Rook nodded. She is in the galley, complaining about the ration bars. They stood up and walked inside. Mira was sitting at the table, looking at her reflection in a piece of polished metal. The tattoo on her neck was still there, but the angry redness was gone. It was just black ink now, inert. Hey, Rook said, how is the head? Still ringing, Mira said without looking up. Saren sat down opposite her. We can remove it, Saren said gently. We found a doctor who says he can laser the ink off. You won't have to carry the mark anymore. Mira touched the letters. R-E-A-P-E-R. She thought about the arena. She thought about the soldiers waking up. She thought about the shield holding back the fire. No, Mira said. She looked at Saren and Rook. Her eyes were clear, fierce, and free. I am keeping it. Why? Saren asked. Mira smiled. It was a small, tired smile. Because it reminds me, she said, Reaper isn't what they did to me. Reaper is what I refuse to become.